Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today, not as late to the party as last time because it's only been a week. We are back in the world of Arcane League of Legends. And again, if in case you haven't heard the previous podcast we did about Arcane, about the first season, I have never played League of Legends. Nothing against it. This is just not my genre of game to play, so I have no idea about the lore. I have no idea if this is supposed to be canonical, if it's not canonical, what they changed, everything else. I am not the person to ask. So
And I,
that's
Wolf, have played it like once or twice and have watched people play it a little bit more, so I have a little bit more of an understanding of the game at least.
but even so, I am just mentioning this as a form of technicality because let's be honest, Arcane has gone so popular from the first season alone to the point that even people who had no idea that League of Legends is a thing absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much it's relevant to say what your opinion on the game is when it actually took over the way it did.
The only thing having like a really great understanding of the game, right? From what I understand, is just you're gonna get like some references here or there, right? It's like, oh, that reference, haha, I see that.
Hmm.
That's what you're getting
So
basically. Otherwise, it's fairly ish different.
okay,
It's not
well
gonna
to
help too
be,
much.
but again, it is. Uh, when we're talking about how video game adaptations are just kind of starting to hit that, you know, that peak, there
Mm.
are still a few bad ones that come out here and there. Like the Borderlands movie was apparently really terrible. I haven't seen it. I haven't played the game, but
And one we did
I
watch that was kind of meh was the Uncharted one.
yeah, and that's and I did see the FNAF movie, which I think was absolutely terrible, but I loved every second of it because of it. So take that for what it's worth. But
Yeah.
we are in kind of an interesting peak for video game movies and shows too. And Arcane seems to be like the dominant one because this seems to be the one that it's not just like, oh, critics like that, but maybe fans won't, or that fans would obviously appreciate it a bit more than critics. This is just the one thing that everyone really seemed to love.
Well,
And
Arcane came out at that time, right, when we were starting to like maybe video game adaptations are good now. And then
I
Arcane
mean,
came out, right? I'm pretty sure, and blew everything out of the water. The first
yeah,
season.
because by the time when the first season came out, so like we started, it started getting because we had like Detective Pikachu and we had the first Sonic movie, which were
Yeah,
kind of delay walk for it.
yeah,
And
I'd agree.
then afterwards, we had stuff like, we had the second Sonic movie, we had the Last of Us show, of course, we had Cuphead, so
Mm.
but still it seems like I want to say the Mario movie, but that's not really a critical success, not the you know
Mario's
what I mean.
fun, but I don't think it's not pushing boundaries, right? Like
Yeah.
you could
It
say,
was it
go ahead.
was if you know Mario, and let's be honest, who doesn't know Mario at this point? It was a fun ride,
Yeah,
but that's as far as I'm gonna go.
yeah, yeah, like by that point, right? We've had even if you don't fully agree that Sonic's pushing boundaries, right? I would say
No.
Sonic was better than the Mario movie personally,
Yeah.
in
Well,
terms of like enjoyable story and stuff like that, right?
biased side aside, if we are only talking about the first movie, this first Sonic movie didn't push any boundaries, but I would also argue that it didn't really need to. Then again, it didn't need to push boundaries. It did what it did, and it did it well enough to the point that, again, it even captured the interest of people who weren't interested in Sonic. I can attest. A lot of friends saw the movie because I recommended it, and they became interested in the franchise because of that. So, but Arcane, for all intents and purposes, just really took off to the point that I don't think people even really knew it was connected to a game at some point. It does say Arcane League of Legends, of course, but do people really bring that up anymore?
I mean, Arcane's one of those things, right? That one of those few times, right, where I think you can say it kind of sets itself so far apart from the game.
Hmm.
Like
That's
it's
exactly
one of
what
those
I'm
few
saying.
times. Oh, yeah, but it's one of those few times where I think a lot of people like don't want to play the game after having watched the show as well. I mean, that's
Well,
for
that
a few other different reasons as well. Obvious, admittedly, right? Even the fan base of League of Legends say, "Yeah, we understand why you don't want to play LoL."
yeah, and like for the record, I don't really want to play LoL because I know this is not the type of game that I gravitate towards, and it's just not my thing. So I'm not. So I would go in with a bias and or an anti-bias, I guess, suppose, right away. But there's the show. And so, kind of looking back, I did re-listen to the episode we did on the first season,
Hmm.
and I said that I totally get the hype. It is a really great show, but there were some things about it that I felt weren't quite there. But I think my general thing that I said that was something like, it's great, but not excellent. What?
Hmm.
How much do you agree with this now in retrospect?
For season one, I
Hmm.
unfortunately, I unfortunately didn't get the chance to do a refresh to
Alas,
season one.
alas, the same here.
So I would say I feel like I would say with season two now at our fingertips, we've seen it and everything, and we have all the understanding of it as well. Hmm. Hmm. I would say, yeah, I still really enjoy it and really liked it, and I would definitely say, yeah, I don't think I would fully agree with you on that.
Mhm.
All of that, just to say, yeah, I don't fully agree with you. I think it's probably one of the best shows I've seen in recent times.
Okay, but let me ask you this. I asked you about season one, and you said that now that we have season two under our belt, I
Yeah,
am just say- I just want to clarify what I said about season one, which is it's a great season, just not excellent in terms of I think some stuff is not particularly wasn't particularly to my tastes. One, it's probably just a meeting, not a show thing, and
I mean,
two,
fair.
I didn't include that in relation to season two
Not
because
including that in
no-
relation to season two. Again, yeah, it's hard when it's been 3 fucking years.
yeah, I know, but
Unfortunately, I
that's why I
agree with
kind of
you. It
had to
definitely
refresh my.
has like some issues here or there, right? Even season two, I would say, has some issues, but I would agree with you
So,
though.
but here's the
Looking
thing,
at just
though.
season one by itself, there's definitely like a few things here or there. It's like that stand out, and I think they stand out enough that it's noticeable because it's such a good show, right?
Mhm.
So you notice
Now,
those little flaws a little bit more.
mhm. Now here's the thing. Here's what I want to say about that. Considering we just said so. So just to say this out of the way without spoiling anything yet, I think season two was great. And overall, if you ask me to choose, I would probably say that I liked season two more than one. It doesn't mean that it's perfect, but overall, things just felt. I felt a lot more invested in season two.
Interesting. I would agree
And
though.
again,
I think season two
without
is way better as well.
and I will say, let's assume, right? Let's just say that in season one you ask me about Echo, I would be who? Season two, oh Echo, I love the stuff with him. He was great.
All I'll say
See what I
before
mean?
we get into things is just episode seven, man.
Episode seven, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Again, no spoilers yet, but we can say episode seven. That's not a spoiler.
Yeah, just episode seven.
So I think overall, though, something about because one of my the reason that I was kind of the one issue I kind of had with season one is that I like these characters, but at some point I felt like there was a lot of information thrown at me, and it started to feel like some things were distracting from the other stuff, from the other things. And to be fair, I know that it's most likely a meeting. It's not a show thing. I completely get it, and I pointed out so that it's completely subjective. I'm aware. And but while season two, while it still has a lot, and there's a good chance I'll probably just maybe I'll mix up character names, or I'll be like, all right, this happens, all right, that happened. I felt a lot more invested in the plot line so far, like throughout the season. Like
Well,
each plot line had something that I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I like that. There wasn't one that I felt really this again. Can't we just progress with the other thing?
I think that's one of the big things with. I think that's one of. If I'm thinking back right, I think that's one of the problems we talked about with season one is that you had Jinx and Vi, Jason
Hmm.
Victor, and then you got introduced to, and then like you had Heimerdinger, who was like a strong side character in Jason Victor's story, but then Heimerdinger and Echo became a story, and we had Echo's story now, and then Caitlyn
Hmm.
was a strong, side character in Vi's and Jinx's story, but then, and like and then you had Mel and Jace, and then it kind of like the main characters switched a lot, right? And
Hmm.
you had all of these honestly what feel like this could be a single season story for just these characters alone, and you would fucking love it because you could devote everything to them, and these other characters would be
Yeah,
side
I
characters and
think
these characters story.
I also mentioned in the season one review we did that they could have totally made Tales of Arcadia out of this with each character.
Pretty much, and be extremely good, right? Because all of
Hmm.
them are strong. But the way they chose to do it, I do find interesting because it is you are getting told basically in season 1, you're getting told 3ish separate stories from like you're getting told one main story from like 3ish different perspectives while
Hmm.
including their own little like side story within the main story of what they're going through and what they're dealing with and how that ties back to the main story. And I do think in season 2 we've nailed that down a lot more to because one like slight spoilers, Vi's not in season 2 as much. Like she's gone for a good portion of it for a good reason, right? It
Yeah.
works.
Hmm.
So
Like I think that's the other thing that there isn't because I think I just listened to this before we did this, so I re-listened to the season one episode we did, where after I finished season two, and something that I said there is that it feels like the show, excuse me, is essentially about Vi and Jinx, and
mhm.
their relationship is the core of the whole thing, and everything else is just happening around it.
I would
While
argue this season it's a bit more of a focus on Jinx
and
solo.
but that's exactly the thing, that in this season I don't feel like there's a clear focus on what the season is even about, besides the fact that this entire world is at war with itself essentially.
Yeah, so that's where you can like bring in some lore, some like League of Legends lore and everything. There's a lot going on.
By the way, I love how you were totally about to say lol lol lol, man, that's a tongue twister. Lol lol lol
Lol,
lol
lol,
lol,
lore. Yeah,
lol, lol,
that's why
lol.
I immediately like that's. No, I'm just not gonna bother.
Rappers get on it, but yeah, yeah. So something you brought us up. What about the law that I need to know about
I
this
mean,
thing?
it's not anything you need to know. I don't think that's one nice thing I would always give to Arcane, right? You don't need LOL to go into Arcane, right? You don't need that stuff in order to enjoy it.
I
It's
just
just
I just mentioned earlier that that's one of the most impressive thing about the show,
uh,
that even if you don't know that, even if you tell someone what is a League of Legends, you can follow and like Arcane just fine.
like all it does is help you like, okay, this relates to this and this. All right, that's interesting. And it also is this thing of like oh what was I thinking? Like I will say, right, like after watching this show both times, I have dove down the wiki and the all that shit stuff and just like deep dive. What is this thing? Okay, well, what is this thing now? Okay, well, what is this thing? I will admit to having done that twice now for this show.
People who write those wikis, we salute you for the
Mm,
record.
very helpful.
So anyway, when it comes to talking about season two as a general thing without any spoilers, though, I guess might as well talk about the big elephant in the room here. This is the final season, and
Yes.
you I'm not sure if anyone could see this, but I felt at some point that they planned for more, and suddenly Netflix pulled the brakes and they're like, oh shit, we need to wrap up.
I mean, I don't know that that may not have been a Netflix thing. That may have been a Riot thing as well, right? That also could be the case,
It
right?
could be. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying maybe there's a good chance that they just felt okay. This is enough. We don't really want to. We told what we had to say. We can wrap it up. Maybe, but considering how Netflix has treated some other animated shows, inside job, and considering just other stuff and everything, I don't know. I have a feeling that there was supposed to be more, and suddenly they got word that they are going to wrap it up. Because I'm not sure if you saw, but the budget for this show is pretty freaking huge.
Oh, it's $250 million. It's a big now. Granted, that's only like if you like do all the math and everything. I think people have done it right. It's only like something around like a couple million per episode, right? Somewhere in there, like 20 million per episode, something like that. It's
Something
not
like that, but
it's not super expensive when you compare it to other things, but when you compare it to
mm,
other animated shows,
that's exactly you see here. If you compare it to movies, then obviously that's not that big of a number. There are a lot of movies with that kind of budget, but when you compare it to a TV show, that's a lot of money. Now, how much money a company wants to throw at something, and how much their money they're going to make off of that something, that's a totally different discussion that I can't really go into because we don't have concrete
true.
numbers. But
Yeah,
then
there's
again, Arcane is really doing really well for Netflix. So,
that's one of the
uh,
things, right?
so
Like I have to I would assume. I could be wrong, but I would assume Netflix would not want to jeopardize Arcane because that's like a big I would assume that's a big draw to the platform for them. Having Arcane is like a huge boost, I feel. Whenever they release like a new season. I would assume.
mhm. And but the thing is also that they still throw a lot of money at it, and it's kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because if it wasn't successful, they wouldn't throw so much money at it.
Now I will
But
also
then
say
again,
though, you say this the last season, there has been we did get it revealed, I believe, that they do have at least one other show that they have been in a year's
yeah,
worth of production on
that's
so far.
another thing that the showrunner, I think, did say that they are planning spin-offs set in this universe, and
Yeah.
interesting. I would definitely want to see where this is going, but also what kind of direction can you take with that kind of spin-off? Would it be like Tales of Arcadia, where it's all
Well,
connected, or are you going to do the Hell of a Boss Has Been Hotel thing, where it's the same universe, but otherwise it's pretty disconnected from each other?
can't say at the moment. They weren't.
There you go. We
What I
don't
do
know.
know is that the showrunner talked about wanting to do three other shows, but only one
Mm,
was in like actual production and has been in production for some time. The way it's been talked about, right? The way I understood
mhm.
it, and people just ran with they have three shows in production, but they don't. They just have one, and then there's I guess
Yeah, just
ideas for two others.
I guess you could say in development. Like they have the idea and they are trying to figure out where to go with it.
And the way I understood it was that the three show ideas were basically centered around other continents within the world of League of Legends, which is called Runeterra. What you saw in
Mhm.
this one was like Piltover. The other ones would be Ionia, Noxus, and there's a third one I forget the name of, unfortunately. I'd have to look it up, but there's a third continent that they would want to do a show set in.
Yeah.
And
So again, so from what I'm hearing here, we are essentially between the two comparisons I brought up. This is more of a has-been hotel, hell of a bus kind of
Well,
thing.
the thought
Where
is based off the ending of Arcane and how
well, we're
people.
not there. We're not there. We're not there.
I'm not saying anything to the end of Arcane. I'm just saying like people think what they'll cover is Noxus because some of the characters in Arcane came from there, right?
Mhm.
And they think you'll see some of those characters back in Noxus.
Okay, so it will be more of a Tales of Arcadia thing.
Potentially. Do not quote me on any of that. We don't know nothing.
Okay.
That's just the
Like again,
assume.
this is just what we know and what we speculate, what we
Yes.
speculate about. This is not confirmed information. Do not quote us on your
Live
paper.
here on the
You'll get it.
Berkcast. Leaks about Arcane. We got the
Outcast,
deets.
Outcast Wolf. This is not How to Train Your
Yeah, I
Dragon.
mean,
You see, one of the hosts can get the fucking name of the show right. Why would you?
listen, our tagline is debatably professional, so I'm living up to our tagline.
You're the one who came up with it. Just
I know.
saying.
That's why I'm living up to it.
Mhm.
I have a
Also, I just want to say.
responsibility.
Also, I just want to say that the catchphrase is unprofessional and debatably amusing. So you even got that wrong.
I
Fuck's sake,
mean,
what can you do, right?
eh, again, I have a contractual obligation to live up to our tagline, and I am doing just that on a consistent basis. You're welcome, as the one who
Mhm.
came up with the tagline as well.
Yeah. Why did I bring this guy on? Anyway, let's talk about the show proper because I think people came here to probably hear us talk about Arcane season 2, and like right now we are just tangenting. We are apologizing for that, but
Eh,
you can't argue you can't argue it's fun. It's fun, and we are
mhm.
talking about the future possibilities of this. I guess universe because if we are going to get more
I mean,
shows
I
out
think
of
that
it.
says something in itself, right? I think it definitely says that we would enjoy seeing more of this. With this kind of style, with this kind of like level of production and care, I think that says a lot in and of itself that we were like speculating already on
Especially,
how.
I will say though, I will say if the spin-offs carry on the same animation style, by all means, because season 1 had moments where it looked a bit iffy. Season 2 looks absolutely
Oh
incredible.
man, just like that's something I think we have to praise, right? Like season two, they decided, hey, let's just have some fun with this because they do a lot of other new and different animation styles for different things and different types of
Mhm.
scenes and stuff.
Like
They just,
honestly,
man,
if they ever do an animated spin-off show for Into the Spider-Verse, they have to take a few notes from this because this looks
mm,
incredible.
yeah, like I love the fact that they were like, yo, animators, have fun with it. And the animators like, yes, let's go.
And they give them the money and hopefully time. I hope nobody was crunched on this, but you
Hopefully.
know what I mean.
Yeah, like it's just there are some scenes in here that are absolutely gorgeous. The style they choose to go with and how it just works with everything. Mm,
Mhm. It always annoys me though when you hear stuff like Netflix doesn't care about animation, and when you see that, and on the one hand, you can kind of see in terms of the business retrospect, but also you see stuff like Sonic Prime or Arcane that, ironically enough, two video game adaptations, where the animation is just, uh, a step up every other animated show out there in
mm.
terms of TV budget.
Or even
And
Castlevania too, right? Like that one.
yeah, Castlevania too. But I mean, like, but not to say that there's not effort required, that there's no effort required, but I think it's easier to get stuff to look good in 2D with a TV budget than 3D.
Mm.
3D is a bit more tricky. So when you can do stuff like, the squash and stretch in Sonic Prime, or all the effects and the visuals in Arcane, of course, there's something that, like, you can tell when something doesn't have a budget compared to when to something that does. So,
And
or at least a very talented crew that knows how to utilize the budget.
yeah, and like when there's a lot of care taken into something and when there's not, right?
Hmm.
You
Like,
can
again,
tell.
if you look at, just the best quote unquote example I have at the moment. Take Kung Fu Panda: The Dragon Knight. That was also Netflix, and it's a big franchise by DreamWorks Animation. It's a high profile franchise, and the animation in that show is freaking not terrible, but it's very lackluster.
Passable. I'm surprised you didn't use our favorite show as an example.
It's not Netflix, so
True, but it is a great example of
he's talking
bad
about the nine.
animation.
Yeah, he's talking about Dragons: The Nine Realms, which is not even, something. It's kind of insulting to put that in the same conversation.
True,
So
but it is an example of a show that I don't want to say the crew didn't care, but definitely weren't given what they needed to really excel, right? At the very least.
yeah. So again, it's weird to see the two shows that I would point out. This is what you can do with CG animated shows come from Netflix, when Netflix doesn't really treat animation properly lately. But just
Sad.
ironies, I suppose.
Sad that basically Netflix is being built up so much by something like Arcane, and they're like, don't care.
Cancel it after 2 seasons, and it's like, well, anywho, honestly,
This is why you're
imagine if
losing
the
now,
spin-offs,
Netflix.
imagine if the spin-offs they produce end up not being on Netflix.
If they don't, like, it's just another reason why Netflix just takes guns, shoots itself in the foot constantly. like
It
I,
shoots itself in the foot. This is freaking suicide at this
I
point.
mean, yeah, it's not. There's a reason why Netflix has been losing lately, and it's just not looking good for them. And if they cannot secure like the other side shows or sequel shows to Arcane, oof, Netflix, oof.
Well, this is a conversation for another day, of course, but
True,
not completely impossible.
true. It could happen
But
considering
but
Netflix.
again, but we'll talk about it whenever the time is right, I
Yeah,
suppose. So now, now let's actually talk about season two, and I guess spoilers from this point on. So if you haven't seen season two, all three acts, this is your chance to close the video and go watch it. So 3, 2, 1. Still here? Okay, so the first two acts are great. Act three is good, great even. But I started feeling stuff were getting a bit rushed when it came to wrapping everything up.
I would say towards the end, I kind of agree with you. Like it definitely feels like okay, like there's a few things that feel a little unanswered and don't feel like
Mhm.
we have a good conclusion to, but I get it. We're getting close to the end and you only have 9 episodes. But I feel hands down episode 7 is
That's
the strongest part of Act 3 and arguably my favorite part of Arcane season 2. Maybe all of
so. Here's the
Arcane.
thing. Here's the thing. I definitely agree with you. Season two, episode 7 is amazing. It's fantastic.
Mm.
But when I'm looking at it as an episode on its own, it's incredible. I loved everything about it. Again, like I said, season one, Echo Who? This season, whoa, the Echo episode was the best one. No question about it. But you have this season where this is your last season of television, right? You're supposed to wrap everything up, and suddenly for an entire episode we are getting an alternate universe story in a story that already has a lot happening in it. So I
I
love the episode. I had a lot of, and also the Jace part of it, also great.
listen. I'm just gonna talk about it because we have to talk about it because I want to talk about it. Fuck you. Episode
Okay.
7 is so well done, and everything it sets up, right? And then when you like start to look at it after you get the full show, and you're like, holy shit! Like just
Mhm.
having, like, you get the conclusion of Heimerdinger's, story here. Even though he's a small side character, you get that. You have Heimerdinger, this person who was considered the father of Piltover, and he's like someone who's set on a pedestal, right? And then you see him here in this episode, and he's not living on that pedestal because apparently Heimerdinger, like they all get sent because of the Hex Gate and the Hex Tech stuff. Jace, Echo, and Heimerdinger get sent to what seems like alternate, realities, but set
Yeah.
in like different times. Like Jace gets sent to the future, Heimerdinger gets sent 3 years in the past, and Echo gets sent to the present. also extremely, clever and fun. That Echo, the person who's supposed to like have the time travel ability in the game, right, gets and
It
gets
invents
sent to the
time
present.
travel.
It gets sent to the present and is the person who thinks about the present the most, but Jace gets sent to the future and Heimerdinger gets sent to the past. But then you get like this whole thing of like, okay, well, Heimerdinger in season one, right, was told off by Jace and a few other people where, like, hey, you've been living above it all. You've completely lost the idea of like what it's like for the people of Zon, the Undercity and the people of
Mhm.
Piltover and everything. And you don't know what it's like anymore. And because Heimerdinger is basically like immortal practically, or he can live for a long fucking time,
Yeah.
he's lost that connection and everything. And so now, you get Heimerdinger sent 3 years in the past, which is fucking clever because it's implied, right, by this episode that, okay, Heimerdinger spent that 3 years making Zon a better place,
Yeah.
providing that like utopia that Echo got to experience. And then you
Mhm.
get like personally one of my favorite songs from the entire show. Like I don't like a lot of the pop songs. I feel like they relied on them too much. Personally, they did it in season one, and they definitely did it here.
It's a
And
hit
they're
or
not fun.
miss.
They're good songs. Don't get me wrong. They're not bad. I prefer it when you create stuff for your show. And Heimerdinger's song here was created for the show and was sung by the voice actor for Heimerdinger, which was amazing.
That's awesome.
But you have that, right, and you have like while his song is playing, right, you see Echo enjoying the present here with a not jinxified powder basically, and then you flip back and forth between Echo having fun here and living basically the best version of his life he could live, and Jace in a future who is just living in hell basically, trying to like survive, really, in a
Mhm.
future that just looks awful and terrible. And you have that back and forth, the juxtaposition of everything, and then you have Echo still choosing to give up this present to go back and save what he already has, because that's who he is and that's what he wants to save and that's what he wants to make better because that's where he's from, right? Just
Mhm.
it's so good. There's so much stuff here
Mm.
that you can look at and just pull apart and like, oh, this thing and this thing and this thing. And then you get
And
the reveal, episode 9, of who the fucking wizard is that saved Jason and his mom way back in season 1. And you get that reveal here and you find out so much more and you're like, oh man, everything starts to click so much more.
mhm. Agreed. Agreed. But then that's what I'm saying though, that episode 7 is fantastic, but what does it really do to contribute to the overall story?
I think, right, it contributes personally, I would say it contributes to Jace's character, Echo's character, and Heimerdinger's character. It finishes off Heimerdinger's character because by the end of episode 7, he's gone.
Mhm.
There's a
That's
lot of different
okay.
assumptions you can make about him, but it finishes off Heimerdinger's character. It sets up Echo's character to save Jinx, right?
Mhm.
At the end of the
Yeah,
arc.
okay. Mhm. Yeah,
And
again, you see though, when you okay, and finish, sorry.
and it gives you clarification for Jace's character and his actions in the previous episode, which was 6, that everybody
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, for 1 week, what did Jace do? He ruined Utopia." That was a whole conversation.
Yeah, I've seen some discussions of if what he did was right or wrong, but
And then
you say though, you say this now. Let me counter and ask: did we need a 40-minute episode for that when those could have just been 1 or 2 minutes attached to them in another episode?
that's the thing, right? I can't necessarily give you a defense of that per se, other than say, look at episode 7 and you tell me if that was worth it or not.
Okay, and again,
Which is fair, fair.
again, do not take this as me not liking
No, no, no,
episodes.
no, no, I'm not.
Episode 7 is incredible. What I'm saying though is that when I'm just looking at this from, I need to finish my show, I have 9 episodes. What would actually contribute to the story so that it
Well, let
doesn't
me
necessarily feel rushed?
ask you this, right? If you condense episode 7 down and maybe like use that time for other things, what would you have liked to seen that time used for, right?
Mhm. Because here's the thing, I felt like there were a few things in episode 8 and 9, like because episode 8 was basically a build up towards 9,
Yeah,
right?
episode 8 is just setting everything
And
up
then
for the
and then
big
9 and then
fight.
9 was essentially the final battle.
Yeah.
So I guess a bit more of a resolution for episode 6 would have been nice because it feels like that because episode 6 ends like on a holy fucking shit moment, right?
Yeah.
Like, fuck you, Jace, and the thing with Vender absolutely broke me. Isha,
Oh yeah, Isha
that's
and
the
Jinx
name.
and
Yeah,
Vi.
just everyone that Victor ever helped, just you know.
Listen, I loved, right? Because I loved all of Arcane season 2 could be summed up with someone shouting, "We're so back! It's so over. We're so back! It's so over. We're so
uh,
back! It's
welcome to
so over."
welcome to being a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. But
I
okay,
mean,
jokes aside, though, because the Sonic fan base is in pretty good this year, if I may say so myself. But
mhm,
anyway,
mhm.
so episode 6 is just such a roller coaster, right? And then we get this elsewhere story that's again wonderfully done.
Mm.
And then you get to episode 8, which is basically just kind of it's a setup for episode 9, but also an epilogue to episode 6 because we skipped an episode technically. So it's like,
Yeah,
wait.
basically episode 8 is epilogue to episode 6 and set up for episode 9. And 7 is just basically giving you context for why Jace did what he did, basically. And to give you, okay, this is where Echo and Heimerdinger are. And then basically gives you, like, okay, this is how Echo and Heimerdinger get back into episode 9 when you see them. Or Echo, anyways, not Heimerdinger, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so
And
I think
I will agree with you in that sense. Did we need an entire episode to set up this is what happened to Echo and Heimerdinger? And this is how Echo gets back to episode 9 when you see him, right? I can't tell you no. I can't tell you that yes, we did need that. I can say that I'm glad we got it at the end of things because it's probably one of my favorite episodes with everything that it does. But was it
and
necessary
again,
or
I will
needed
say
at that
and I will
length?
say again and again and again, episode 7 is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that in the bigger picture, how do all of these puzzle pieces come together is where I'm starting to raise an eyebrow.
In that regard, I can agree with you that like yeah, like the time that was spent since so much time was spent to Echo and Heimerdinger in this episode, right? And a little bit to Jace because we get to see all of the context for why Jace did what
But
he
I
did
will
and
say
everything.
though, I will say Echo and Powder, that story, I wasn't expecting it, but that was legit one of the most legit romances I've seen in a long time.
And again, man, what is with shows that don't really do romance stuff, front and center a lot, having like, hey, here's just a well done romance thing that's done extremely quick, right? What is up with that? Because I swear that's
Um,
happened a few times now.
well,
But no, like I will agree with you, right? Like I cannot defend and tell you that hey, it has an exact spot and here's everything that it gives you, right? And why it's all super connected. I can say I think there's a lot in here that is connected and well done, but did it need to be 40 minutes? Did it need to be a whole episode? Could it have been smaller so some of episode 7 could have been devoted to other things as well? Possibly, right? It's definitely possible. Would it have made Arcane season 2 better? I don't know. Would it have helped any like leftover feelings of things feel a little bit rushed or things feel a little bit left unanswered that could have been answered, maybe even should have been answered? Maybe. All I can what I can tell you is I don't feel like I've lost too much by not having that, right?
no, definitely not. Again, for the record, if just because I say that, I have a certain, that like I'm raising an eyebrow at that, it doesn't mean that I'm against having it here. Like I said, it's a
No.
great episode. I
Yeah.
have to stress this.
Oh yeah, no,
There's
absolutely.
there's
You
a lot
don't
of
want them
value
off.
to it. Then I just want to say, if we were talking about romance for a second, I just want to say that apparently, as preparation, I was kind of trying to check out what the other people had to think about the season, just to see where things stand. And there was a YouTuber I watched who apparently watched Act 3 in a theater with a bunch of fans, or it was like a screening in a con or something. I don't remember.
Hmm.
And apparently and what's her name? Oh my god,
Caitlin.
I can't believe it. Kaylin. Yeah, during their sex scene, people were actually cheering, and and don't get me wrong, I totally get it. Like they are a good couple, right? They are a great couple, and I kind of said that I even called it in season one that they're gonna go there, and the way the scene was handled was really good and everything. But is this really the part of the thing where you cheer for something? I don't know.
I mean,
Like,
to be fair to them, that relationship has been can also be summed by up by the "We're so back, it's so
like
over. We're
oh
so
no,
back, it's so
oh
over."
no, if anything, I think they made the meme up based on that relationship because
I mean, true.
holy shit.
That relationship, even in season from season 1 to season 2, it's just been that constantly, and then maybe every now and again, "We're so back?" question mark, and then back
So
to "It's so over."
like when there's the point, Caitlyn is waking up with that other girl from the guard, like, and next to
Oh
her in
yeah,
bed, and I'm like, oh boy, like this is the okay, get the popcorn ship, let's go, let's do this, I'm ready, and
they solved that problem real quick.
oh, and something, I was actually kind of joking when because Caitlyn, like during the sex scene, she actually tells Vi, like, when we were, then she's like, I don't care, and they just keep going, and I'm like, well, that's kind of pointless then to do it, and then they actually played up that twist reveal where that chick was actually turning against Caitlyn, and it's like, oh fuck. I'm taking back what I said. I didn't even think about it. Didn't see that one coming. Interesting.
Something that got pointed out to me, right? She
Mhm.
was actually like they hinted at her betrayal way back for season 2 at the like close to the beginning and stuff. Like she was the first one to start beating her chest, right?
Mhm.
And for someone who's supposed to be like a new rookie on the force, she is
Yeah.
exactly where she needs to be at every single time. And you can actually see her when the attack happens on the funeral and everything that they're doing for
Yeah.
everybody. You can
That's
actually
a
see her
very good
looking
point.
around and notice things that she shouldn't be noticing, right? For
Yeah,
supposedly a rookie. And you're like,
that's a good
"Oh
point.
shit." They thought of that. You can see that shit. What the fuck?
Honestly, honestly, kudos because I
That's the
didn't
level of
even notice
detail with
and
the
I didn't
show
think
that I think people come to
yeah,
expect and love.
little details which go a long way. So that's really good. So yeah, but again, it's just kind of entertaining to me that you have this very intimate sex scene and people and just the image of a lot of audience members going, "Woo, yeah, yeah, yeah!" It's like, guys, it's normal human behavior. Let's calm down a bit.
Again, in this instance, I get it for like because this relationship was very much the meme, and people were probably like,
Yeah,
"Finally."
yeah, I get it. I just think it happened like because they do kiss even before that, way before that. So that I would get, but a sex scene is kind of like I don't know. Maybe it's just
To
my
be fair, no,
mindset of
to be fair,
what
they
the or
kiss
what
and
exactly.
then they're separated. Then they kiss
Yeah.
again and then they're separated again.
Again, so back, we're so done. That seems to be the theme in
So
this
I feel like
season.
at this point, people are like, a kiss? I need more than that. Otherwise, I don't believe it.
Well, anywho, so regarding other stuff, we barely talked about Vi, so I have to say
What'd you
I
think
like
about
her
Emo Vi?
that she looks like Shadow.
I have seen other people make that exact same comparison. I
Yeah,
think that is a
you see,
meme.
you see something. I was so happy that that's a meme because it means, oh, good,
I
I'm not
actually saw an
biased.
image that I
Yeah,
meant to share with you and show you.
I know exactly what
Oh,
image you're
you've already
talking
seen
about
it. Never mind.
because Adri Graywin shared it with me. I saw it. I think it's the same thing, but
It is. I bet it
I I
is.
am I am so happy that not the only one who caught that because that means I am normal and not biased. So, but like, come on, it's black with red stripes at the end.
Even
That's
when I try
fucking
to
Shadow.
escape from Sonic, he finds a way to drag me back in.
Even in Arcane,
Even
they
in
celebrate.
Arcane, I'm still
They,
there.
no, even in Arcane, they celebrate the year of Shadow, baby. It's a thing, in
Can't
case you
escape.
didn't know.
Help, please. No.
S- well, but okay, that joke. But not that joke. I was also kind of thinking Legend of Korra.
Oh yeah, when Korra goes on like her emo arc.
Yeah, well, at least at the start of season 4, where she's wrestling and tries to find herself, that it reminded me of that.
True. And again, it's really good though because like you get that other random guard dude who like, huh, he seems interesting. Wonder what's gonna come of him. He dies. Don't worry about him.
Yeah.
Did you like him? Go fuck yourself. Did he seem like a cool dude?
To be honest,
Sad.
that's another theme in this fucking season. You like this character? Tough shit.
I mean, I think that's a theme with Arcane in general. Arcane is not a
Good point.
happy show. And
Yeah,
when you
no,
get
but
down
like,
to it, like,
because I was really connected to Isha. She was great. I
oh
liked what
man.
they did with her, especially in relation to Jinx's character, because essentially Jinx has her own powder to some degree.
Hmm.
And I really like that because the main thing in the first season, one of the main things anyway, was that Vi essentially turned away her little sister, and she ended up being a madman. So
Mhm.
now Jinx, after she was rejected by her older sister, to the point that even her sister is just now telling Caitlyn, if you see her, shoot to kill. Like, she doesn't care anymore. Like, any family tie-in that might have been there, not relevant anymore. But now Jinx get herself, a little sister kind of character, and you see that she feels kind of scared of the idea that a kid would want to be with her, even though she saved that kid's life, right?
Mm.
And I really like that, and especially near the end where what's her name, Savika? That's her name.
Savika. Which one is Savika?
The one because Jinx at some point has like a
Oh
trio
yes,
that's her.
Savika. Yes, yes, I remember her now. Yes, yes, the one with the arm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so especially they have this little trio, which is like, two sisters and arguably a very distant aunt. And I like that camaraderie. They
Mhm.
had a thing going here.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that, especially because for the first time in a lot, in probably a lot of time, Jinx has like a proper family that's not abusive, or tells her that she is just a fuck up. And and especially I loved in episode 4 actually, where Jinx and Savika go actually sneak into the prison to save Isha. That was really emotional because Jinx isn't really the type of person who would like think straight. She's nuts at this point, and suddenly having that little bit of a suddenly she has this sort of family that she's really connected to, and she would go to severe lengths to maintain that. Nope, that kid is dead. Fuck you.
I did love like when they're breaking into the prison for her for Isha as well. That one guard is like, "You're not Jinx. Jinx wouldn't wear those pants." And I'm like, "All right,
Yeah,
this is funny."
yeah, that was a really good. That was really good. Yeah, especially that entire I really like jailbreaking sequences. They can be
Mm.
when they're done right, they're really fun, and this was really cool. And
We get more
especially
Singed back, and we get werewolf, quote unquote. Definitely not someone
uh,
important. Like man, and like again, right? Like eh, Jinx and Vi getting ready to get happy. Like, oh man, we found Vander. We might be able to get Vander back because Vander's the werewolf. And
And that's the other thing. It's essentially Isha that kills Vander.
to be fair, Vander was going insane and like
Well, actually, Vander does show up, at the end, right? But
true.
but at the same time, Isha pulled the freaking trigger.
She did. She killed Vander and ruined all the happiness because Jinx had to have her own version of powder.
But that's the other thing I kind of like that, when Powder messed up too much, Vi essentially abandoned her. She disowned her. And now
We should say
here,
like Vi did
eh,
so out of a
of
very
course,
emotional place, right? It wasn't
I
something
know, I
like
know.
she
I have
wanted
a
to
point.
fix it. But yeah, go ahead.
I have a point.
Oh yeah.
I have a point here. What I mean though is that, regardless of where emotional, I'm not saying this is not the issue. What I'm saying though is that when
Mhm.
Jinx loses that person, she's not necessarily going insane. She's not really doing anything else. She turns herself in. She agrees to be arrested. That's that's not that's like you could. I'm not going to say out of character, but it's not the thing you would expect Jinx to do.
She's even ready to end it all as well.
Yeah,
I
that
mean, we had
which.
seen a little bit before then, right? That like you had this impression that Jinx wanted to die,
Mhm.
but like she couldn't. Like a part of her wouldn't let herself die, right? And like every time, like again, like when she's fighting the werewolf, right? Werewolf Vander, right? Like there's this
Mhm.
thing of like, all right, but let's see if you're the one who can take me down because no one's been able to kill me yet. And like, there's always this thing of like, it's almost like her luck won't let her die in a sort of way, right? Which might be a
Yeah.
reference to the games. I don't know for sure on that one, but
Which, by the way, the point where Jinx actually locks Vi up in the cell, and she says, "I don't think there's such a thing as a good version of me." And considering what we saw in episode 7
mm,
and knowing how the show ends, that's heart wrenching.
and it's also really interesting too because you get that better version of Powder, right?
Mhm.
At the cost of Vi's life.
Yeah,
It's so
that
wild.
it's what like this is this is not a happy show for
Again,
the
continue to prove Vi just cannot be happy anywhere ever. If Vi is
well,
happy, someone else
thankfully.
has to suffer.
Yeah, because now that you mention it, say at least she gets Caitlyn in the end, but Caitlyn lost an eye, so
And they lost a
win.
lot of other friends along the way too.
Yeah.
So Vi's happy.
May,
Everyone else is dead though.
uh, but I will say though, I've already seen theories. I've seen people actually defend it like it's like it's like it's proved that Jinx isn't dead.
They do show a
And
thing of like
I know
Jinx's thing at the
they
very end
hint
of the show.
And so for the one, they do hint at how she may have been able to escape.
Yeah.
And I know that there's this thing that, the show does end with, the blimp that she said in season 1 as Powder, that one day she'll ride that blimp.
Hmm.
Now, the thing is, though, this is the point where, again, we're going to talk about the spin offs options in a bit, but if the spin-offs end up not being related to this show whatsoever, then what's the point? Just kill her off. It's more emotional that way, if you ask me.
I think, I mean, one, they probably don't want to kill off a character like Jinx for the sake of the
I
games, right? Or the game, because like Jinx is a real popular character,
then don't
especially now.
then don't pull the card.
True. I agree with you. I assume my assumption is they plan on doing more with her. What I do not know, but that's why my assumption is their next show will be in Noxus, right? And it'll focus more heavily on, say, Mel and Jinx, which Mel's someone we've not even talked about for this season either, right? For everything that happened with Mel. And Mel's
Remind me who's Mel because again, there's a
Mel is
so
the black girl. That's not a good descriptor, is it?
yeah, but Okay, but
That's
I think
terrible. That's the first. She's the one with the dealing with the Black Rose is what I'm thinking of. She's the one who has like the radiant style magic, right? If that makes sense, right?
yeah, okay, the one where where there's the girl who was about to kill Caitlyn, and then like when
Yes,
she
and Bessa
shoots,
is her mother. Yeah. Or yeah,
yeah,
no, that
okay.
one. Yeah, she's the one where guard girl is about to kill Caitlyn, and she puts the shield over Caitlyn, and the bullet bounces back and hits her in the head and kills her. Right.
Yeah, she's cool. Yeah, okay, so that's
So yeah,
fair.
like
Okay.
Mel's going through a bunch of stuff this season as well. We find out like, oh, she has magic and she's capable of using magic and everything. And we find out more about the Black Rose, which that's why other people think again we might be headed to Noxus, and that's how it's connected because the Black Rose is big within
Actually,
Noxus.
apparently, according to like the Wikipedia description here for the final episode, they legit say that Mel departs for Noxus.
Yeah, yeah, like that is also a thing. Like we do know Mel is leaving for Noxus. So that's why a lot of people think the next show will be set in Noxus and will be dealing with stuff with the Black Rose and Mel, and maybe Jinx will be there. But that is one thing I'll also say. I kind of hope not, personally, because, like, even if they're hinting that Jinx is alive, what
Hmm.
role does Jinx play anymore? What do you want to do or see with Jinx's character anymore? Right?
Yeah, that's so. For one, I just think if you're going to continue with her, then don't pull the card of, oh, we totally killed her off, because because at this point I'm just saying because now if she does survive and they're going to do stuff with her, then it's not going to have the same impact if they actually plan on killing her off. You know what I mean?
I will say, like, completely fair. They could have a plan with Jinx that blows us out of the water, right? As of right now, we don't know that though, right? So,
Mhm.
with what I do have information wise, which is Arcane season 1, season 2, I do feel like for the most part, Jinx's character is done and done in a fairly satisfying way. The only thing I would maybe even want to see is, her changing potentially and how that affects her in a new place and what she does or doesn't do. But I don't really need that, right? I'd rather
Mhm.
see you focus on other characters and newer characters and give that focus to them, not Jinx.
Yeah. And again, that's a that's another thing I say. If you pull the card, might as well just kill her anyway, they because for the record, it's not that I want Jinx to die, right?
No,
I really like the character
yeah,
for a lot of reasons, but if you're going to go through the point of shooting it like this and framing it like this and actually making it this big dramatic moment, then you just wasted you played your card and you didn't capitalize on it for me.
yeah, I agree.
So, with that said, anything else that we still need to talk about?
I
Because there is
mean,
a lot. I'm trying to scroll through stuff here. Um, I will say though, again, I enjoyed how they did Vi and Jinx in this season. That
yeah,
because at the start, Vi is actually going. I want to shoot. Shoot to kill. I don't care. She's not my sister. My sister is dead. I want the bitch dead.
and when
But
Caitlyn was about
then
to, Vi stops her to save Isha's life.
yeah, because that and for all intents and purposes, you could say, oh, this is because this is supposed to be like, oh, we need to break up the couple, or we need but it felt real, and also you can tell from the very start that even if Vi is taking on the role of being a guard, being a part of the guard, she tells Caitlin right away, the people in this uniform killed my parents, so understand, I am not all that keen on wearing it. So I like that, once she sees that an innocent child who has nothing to do with everything that Jinx has done, is in their way, she refuses to kill that kid because to her she can make the difference. I like that.
Hmm.
But it's also I can also understand Kate inside of, it's an obstacle in the way. Sometimes you need to ignore, sometimes you can show mercy.
Well, Jinx
It's
also killed her mom too, right? Like
and
there's a
there
lot of
you go.
emotion there. So that she
That's
doesn't
exactly what
even if
I'm saying. It's vengeance at the
yeah,
end of the day.
even if she's doing something wrong, she
And
doesn't care at the moment.
hmm and and then when Jinx comes to vie with with what's his name? Ah,
Vander,
Vander, yes.
mm.
Vi is very hesitant about it, but you can tell that Jinx supports her because Vi didn't want to kill Isha. And you can tell that their bond might start to actually kind of rekindle itself.
Well,
And
you
especially,
also you get like it's Jinx who snaps Vi out of her like issues at a certain point, like
yeah,
within the
definitely.
mine when they're searching for Vander, right? And then you get a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of backstory where on Vander and Silco's falling out. Vander
Yep.
wanted to apologize to Silco, but he never
Mm-hmm.
got around to it. And like they
Yep.
have this thing of like, man, if they could have apologized,
Yeah,
what would
that's
life be like?
mm-hmm. That's that is
Cough,
heartbreaking.
cough, leading up to episode 7, cough, cough.
Yep, and then for a moment they become sisters again until everything goes to shit once again. And and again, I also kind of like that characters feel three-dimensional, like they go back and forward on their motives after they actually
Hmm.
talk and listen. I am so happy with this because don't get me wrong, it's interesting that there's conflict, I get it, but sometimes it feels like characters are written to do things because we need a plot to happen, not because it makes sense. Here it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
Well, yeah, because like again, it feels like you said, it feels like the character's a real person making a decision. Like, oh, this is how I feel right now because I'm emotional. Oh, I've had the chance to cool down, think about things, and I've been introduced to something or found something that's like changes that opinion now. Fuck. Well, uh, I have to do this now because this is the right thing to do now, and this is how I'm being led now because like I have all of this information now, and I feel this way now, so I'm gonna change, right?
Mhm. Yeah. And it all goes back to Jace is basically the Star Lord in Infinity War of this entire season.
Listen, I I love Jason this in this season personally. Dude goes through it, but it like he comes
No,
in
he
clutch at the
goes through
very
it.
end.
He goes through it, and like I like what I've done with him. Like the way, also when you actually hear him talk science, and when you hear him actually getting excited about the prospect of
Listen, it was
trying
a like speaking of that, right? Like it was great to see like that little scene of like, oh, it's Heimerdinger with his old student who he did fail and his new student who he's trying not to fail, right? Which is Echo.
yeah.
And like all
Hmm.
of them being like, oh, let's just the science talk. And then you also got the little scene of Heimerdinger like, all right, we gotta, Metal Gear stealth our way back into my old home, Echo. And Echo's like, you own this place. Why are we sneaking in? And he's like, shh, no, we gotta sneak in. It's like, I love Heimerdinger.
Yeah.
He's
So,
too
but it,
precious for this world,
mm, yeah, but again, so
which is why
Jess
he
is going to go,
died.
but here's the thing, though. I on the
Deep
one hand,
imperfections.
I kind of want to hate him for what he's done, but I kind of get it, and I think this is going to be the big discussion point when it comes to this season. You are going to hate him for what he's doing at the end of episode 6, but you kind of get it, considering everything he's been through.
I mean, right? Like, it's kind of like comes back to that song Heimerdinger sings, right? Like, Jace made a lot of decisions. A lot of them were bad. Some of them were good, but that's the point. Like, you need to be able to do that. Heimerdinger couldn't and wouldn't for such a long time. And a lot of the mistakes Jace made a lot of mistakes. Like, you see that from Arcane 1 to into Arcane Season 2.
Yep.
And at the very end of it all, you see Jace realize, well, I still have a chance to set things right though, and he finally does with Victor because he Echo gives him that chance at the very end, right? And I do love like seeing, excuse me, like finding out like, oh, it was Victor that gave him the original stone, and Victor's been trying desperately to find like the right magic rune to give Jace to like prevent the world from being destroyed basically, right, by him.
Mhm.
It's so good, and like you finally see like, hey, what Victor wanted the entire time was to be, saved by Jace and everything. Like the best romance in the world, basically.
Yeah.
And then they
So,
disappear, and we don't know what happened to them.
yeah, again, who knows? Maybe in the spin-off or whatever it's going to be. You may never
It is
know.
possible we might see something from that there. I guess the last thing we could talk about, right, is Caitlyn doing a fascism.
Okay.
She
What do
declares
you mean?
martial law in the city and everything, and she starts beating down a lot of the people from the Undercity using the Noxian warriors and everything, and like being very ruthless to them, and making them go through security checkpoints and like patting them down and everything, basically justifying Jinx. Like she's making everyone's lives miserable from the Undercity and everything.
Yeah, I found again, I like that because just to show that essentially you're not that different from your enemy, kind
No,
of
yeah,
thing.
absolutely. Like I think it's great. I think it was wonderful for Caitlyn's character, right? Because like you see, like
And
she's very
especially
emotional and
because
she's
this
going
is
through all this
also,
shit.
again, this is also the point. Like after Vi tells her, "We're not going to harm the innocent child," and you can tell
Mm-hmm.
it's getting to her. She
Mm-hmm.
feels betrayed, and she doesn't see clearly.
Nope. And that's when Mbessa comes in and starts leading her astray and everything. And that's when you get that scene where she sleeps with that other guard girl, right? I think her name's
Mhm.
Maddie is what her name is. And then
Yeah,
you have
she warns her about, keep the business and the pleasure aside or
yeah,
something like that. And not
yeah.
not the way she says it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but like same idea, right? And then we find out, oh, she was a traitor. Ah.
Hmm. And by the way, the chick who told Caitlyn that totally knew, because then when Maddie
Oh
reveals
yeah.
to be a traitor, she's like, she's in on this because she doesn't told you, and it's like, bitch.
Oh yeah, that was completely set up by her.
Yeah, like that. Honestly, forget Maddie. This was the bigger stab in the back, if you ask me. Like, because she obviously had more of an authority.
Mm. But I mean, that's Mbessa's character, right?
Of course, of course, of course. I'm
Which is
just
great.
I'm
That's
just
what
pointing
makes it
out.
fun.
Hmm. Again, I'm just pointing it out.
No, no, fair, fair. Absolutely fair.
So, anything else?
I mean, what it comes down to at that point, right, is like there's so much lore stuff you could talk about here and how it adds in or takes away from or changes up the League of Legends lore. Not doing the
Which
tongue
I
twister,
can, which I couldn't care less because again,
which is
I
fair.
don't play the game.
If that's something you're interested in, that's not something we're going to be able to talk about all that much here personally, just because that's not something we have a ton of information about. I know a little bit here or there, but not enough to give you deep dives or anything like that. There are some great videos
Yeah,
online that you can already
like
find that
I
do
am.
that if you're super interested in that. And
I
I
was
say I've watched a
about to
few of
say
them. I say go for it.
there's a very good chance. Yeah.
Say
Which
again.
again, that's kind of. I was about to say, I'm sure if I'm interested in anything, there's a good chance there's like a really good YouTube video about it.
One I would recommend, like super deep dives, like 2, 3 couple of videos that are 2, 3 hours long, is TB Skyen, I believe his name is, or their name is. I've watched one or two of
Mhm.
their videos. Some amazing stuff. Like they go deep dive. They deep dive on like the League of Legends lore and the animation of Arcane and how all the different like references and little tidbits of lore and what this means and what this could mean and what this may not mean and all sorts of shit. Like if you want like deep dive, go watch them. It's genuinely, I've only watched one of the videos, but they are amazing. And they know their stuff. At least it feels like they know their stuff. So
Mhm. Fair enough.
that's where you can get your deep dive if you're super interested. Here, we talk show good. It good. We enjoy.
Hmm. I just want to say, if any, I am probably going to look into it at some point, but not in the near future.
I'm one of those people who, if I get interested in something, I will sometimes like focus in on it and just deep dive because I want to know all the things now,
Hmm.
and then burn myself out a little bit. I'm like, okay, I know enough now. Bye.
Well, so anything else to say about
I mean,
Arcane season 2? Or
you can go watch it. I think Arcane season 2 might win like favorite show of the year again.
yeah, I
Try
mean,
not
it's
to,
really good.
but I mean, something again we've not talked too much about. Like, it is again the animation, like seeing the black and white, the charcoal drawing stuff that they did for early on in this season, or the stuff with Victor when he first starts healing people, right? And like people calling him Victor Jesus, basically, right?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Like seeing the animation for that and the art style that they choose to go with and everything, or seeing what the kind of stylization they chose to do for episode 7 for Echo and Powder and everything, and like all of that.
Hmm.
I think this is definitely a show that again lets it let this is a show that let its animation speak for a lot of its scene for itself, right? Like they didn't need to do
Yeah,
anything
there
else.
are. We didn't even go over all the beautiful uses of animation that we have in this show. Like, for either there's Jinx's anxiety attack. There's also a scene
Oh
where she's just
yes.
laying, where she's laying on the floor and you just see her hair all over the place. That's such a
Mm.
good image. There are so many moments. Like also, Jace going through the future. In episode
That's
7,
another
that
good
thing.
one, yes.
There are so many goddamn visuals in this show that are absolutely breathtaking. Like literally, give me some of those frames to hang on my wall. No
Oh,
joke.
yeah, absolutely. Like it's art 100%. It is just so good. And like I'm not enough of an animation expert to be able to talk that up well enough just to tell you how good it is and the amount of work it probably took to make that look that good, right? And just
Hmm.
work the way it works. But some absolute talent is working behind the show, and I hope they go far because they
And I hope they go
absolutely
far
deserve it.
because as far as I'm aware, the studio that animates this is part of the company that has the League of Legends RPG, right? They've made the animations from the game, as far as I'm aware. So
Um, Let me check. Is there a thing on Wikipedia here for the?
again, that's what I heard. If
Yes,
I'm right.
Fortiche. I believe they're connected to Riot.
So again, if they keep this, so if the animation studio literally does work for people who make League of Legends and they are involved in the spin-offs, by all means, I want to see more.
Um, Surprisingly enough, they started off making commercials and then moved on to creating music videos. And apparently that caught the attention of video game studios like Ubisoft, uh, uh, and Riot, and a few others.
Oh my god! You shouldn't have said Ubisoft because damn, I would have loved to see a Rayman show in this style. But then again, I
Huh.
just want something to happen with them.
You want to know something? Well, you might enjoy that. Or you might not. What I'm about to
Yeah.
read out to you.
No.
Fortiche
Yeah.
eventually moved on to the production of the series Rabbids Invasion, which it co-produced from 2013 to 2019 for
Fuck it, that was the
Netflix.
worst thing ever. Worst thing ever. Cancel them. No, nope, nope, nope. Okay, jokes aside, jokes about this aside,
And
that's
after
still pretty.
Rabbids
That's
Invasion, they got given Arcane.
Mhm.
Wild.
Yeah, like talk about a redemption arc right there. You know,
Just
from a
wild.
show with a bunch of characters that basically inspired the minions to Arcane. Like that's again that's if Universal would do a remake of Schindler's
Mm. So yeah, reading it real quick, if you're curious, Riot does own, like actually owns a good portion of Fortiche, but they don't
List. Okay.
fully own them. Like they're not like in bed together.
Well, then I guess there's probably the section that's connected to the game, and then there's the other portion which probably does the other projects that they're getting.
But at this point, right, it's probably best to say that anything Riot releases as far as shows go in the future, you're probably going to see Fortiche be the ones behind it more than likely,
And
right?
you know what? Buy me that. Oh, I'm all for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I would love to see other. I would love. I think it'd be interesting, and I would enjoy seeing it. I think more shows and more companies should do stuff like this, like the the Star Wars Echo style thing, or like we got the Ubisoft version with what was the name of that show? Uh, the Ubisoft where it had Rayman and all the other Ubisoft characters, right?
Captain Laserhawk.
Yeah, Laserhawk, like that style of here's just a bunch of different like like kind of style animation and different episodes, one shot sort of things. I think more companies should do stuff like that. So I would like to see. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I would love to see Riot say, "Hey, you're an animation studio. Here's an episode. Do your thing. Have fun with a character or something that you want to do." I think more studios should do stuff like that. Like Disney's done that with Marvel and Star Wars. I think people should do more of that, right? Personally, because I think that's really cool and
Mhm.
really interesting to see. But
Yeah, agreed.
even still, if all we do is get Fortiche for every single Riot produced show, I'm okay with that because they've blown it out of the water with Arcane season 1 and season 2, so like I don't think they'll disappoint.
Mhm. Well, we shall definitely see about that. And whenever a spin-off or anything else is coming,
Yeah,
of
keep
course.
in mind Arcane season 1 took like 6 years to develop, so I would not expect
Mhm.
anything anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sucks,
Well,
but
that I guess that's also a thing that they probably had a good time because not sure about this. I'm just theorizing,
mhm,
but there's a good chance that when they started to develop Arcane, it probably didn't have like a network or something. Developing a show could also mean just figuring out where to go with it and actually pitching it
true.
to places to get the funding, and then you have to work with a boss that doesn't necessarily wants to do what you want to do.
And with Arcane,
And
they were completely unproven as well, right?
yeah, so there's a good chance that it took 6 years because this was like their first big television project
Yeah, before
for
this, all
this.
they had done was Rabbids, and Riot had never done a show before, so
Yeah,
who knew?
so now though, but now when they've proven themselves, this could be a double-edged sword because on the one hand, you want to be able to say from the people who gave you Arcane
True.
because the numbers are going to just you know that the numbers are just going to be there,
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely.
When you put that kind of thing in I assure you that even if people again even people who don't know League of Legends be related to Arcane, even if you put from the people behind Arcane on in the trailer or on the poster, people are there,
Oh yeah,
hands down. There's no
100%.
argument. Now the question is, because it's going to be from the people who gave you Arcane and technically in the same universe, technically a spin-off, depends on what they're gonna do with it.
Hmm.
My question is, how much more is the person? Let's assume it's Netflix, okay, just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Be it or any other streaming platform. Let's say either if it's Netflix, Amazon, HBO, whatever. How much of a leash are they going to keep on these guys? Are they going to actually let them walk, or are they going to give them a bunch of notes because they need to now satisfy a bit more of an audience because you have that prestige, I suppose.
Well, it's also a thing, right? Of like, are they going to put a leash on them because they want to, like, yo, that budget? Let's knock that down a couple numbers, please. you
There
know,
you
they
go.
might also do that. It's like, yeah, Arcane was an amazing show and probably has and will continue to do numbers, but are those numbers enough to pay for what Arcane is, right? That is
Mhm.
not information we have, nor will we ever get it because Netflix doesn't release stuff like that.
Yep.
In Netflix's defense, for good reason, but not good reason, bad reason, but I get why they don't release it, right? Saying that, right?
Mhm.
So it's definitely a thing
So
of
now it's also
mm,
coming to the fact of we need to see where. Right now, though, we are just talking at the wall, and because
true.
we don't know what's gonna happen. Obviously, we are going to be a lot smarter once the next project is announced, once we know who's behind it, once we see more. And of course, once it's out, hindsight is always 2020, right? But
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm kind of interested in seeing where this is going because, again, this is not going to be just the the lull show. This is going to be something that people love, people care about, and for a lot of intents and purposes, kind of paved the way for adaptations. Again, it wasn't the first, but it was definitely the first one that to receive such critical acclaim from both critics and the fans. So I how can you handle this type of success is what I'm curious.
Mm. I mean, you know, again, like, can you continue to live up to expectations, right? Because currently, I think everyone would agree we've not seen them miss once yet.
Mhm.
What's going
Then
to happen when
again,
they
I
do
brought
miss, right?
I brought Korra, and again, probably Legend of Korra. Let's look at a sequel to a show that everyone absolutely adores and for good reasons. Avatar: The Last Airbender is amazing. We said it time and again.
Yeah.
And while I like Korra, and I know a lot of people do, and it's considered one of Nickelodeon's best series, it's not on the same par as Avatar: The Last Airbender, partially because Nickelodeon just didn't know what to do with it, and they didn't just let the creators flex.
But
Uh,
even then, right? Like, we've seen those same creators go off to make Dragon Prince, and Dragon Prince is fairly good, but it does
not
have a couple of downs.
not exactly because it's some people who worked on Avatar, but it's not
True.
the creators. You
It's
get
not
it's not
yeah, it's not the full crew, I suppose you could say, but it is people who are a part of that crew, close enough to that crew that it feels like
yeah.
y- you're gonna have people like me who just say like it is from the people who, you know, are a good bit of Avatar, right? Like,
Mhm.
so
There's the
I do
DNA
get you
in there.
though. Yeah, absolutely, right.
Well, so now it's a just this. I'm interested. I'll definitely want to see what they are gonna do. Be it if it's connected to Arcane, maybe it's not. Maybe let's see what's gonna happen because I'm curious to see what a spin-off is gonna look like.
Yeah, agreed. Like, no matter where they go right now, like, they definitely have my attention, 100%.
Mhm.
And
Definitely.
yeah, I hope they go
So,
far.
mhm. So with that being said, anything else to say, or are we gonna close it up?
Go watch Arcane season 2 if you haven't
Yeah.
somehow.
Well, if you haven't, then we just spoiled the whole thing. So,
You'll still
oops.
love and enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, so this is all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed it. What did you think about in season two? And where do you think the franchise can go from here in terms of TV shows based on this world? You can tell us all about that in the comment section below on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team, and on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C. So until the next episode, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next time. Take care.
Bye bye.